There we go. Now the mic is on. uh, yeah. So we have a few announcements. Um, the stream has started its process of turning into an affiliate, which means we'll be able to subscribe soon. And what that means is you'll get a Twitch emote and you'll get a monthly subscription to me, and I'll see some of that money, and Twitch will see some of that money. And I just wanted to upfront be honest with you that I prefer that you buy a comic book regularly, hopefully one of mine, but if not one of mine, something else. I would rather your money go to that than go to subscriptions. But if you are buying stuff anyway and you want to look to support the stream, that's a good way to do it. That'll keep me streaming regularly. I'm going to try to keep streaming regularly anyway, but that'll keep me going regularly. Additionally, donations are going to be a thing, I guess. I got to set that up. So once that happens, then, obviously there's no pressure to donate or subscribe. I just want to get that all out there, be as transparent as possible. We're going to be doing some flats today, but before we get into that, I have 4 things coming out this new comic book day tomorrow. And one of them is kind of flying under the radar a little bit, only because I didn't know when it was going to come out until 2 days ago, and it's coming out this week. So this is something I don't normally do, but I wanted to get into it real quick. So let's get into it, and then we'll get into flatting. So just bear with me while I advertise a little bit. You're looking at The Realm right now. If you were not able to pick up the first issue, the first issue is going to second printing, and it is coming out this week along with the second issue. So you didn't miss anything. There were a lot of people who didn't get the first issue that wanted it. So this week you can pick up the first issue and the second issue back to back. And I think it's going to be more like 2.5 issues in total, because we've added a lot of extra pages, especially in the first issue. So you get a lot of value. So The Realm's coming out this week, and for anyone who doesn't know, it's post-apocalyptic, magic is real, D&D meets Fallout kind of thing. It's a rad book. You should check it out. I don't want to give anything away because only the first issue's dropped so far, so pick it up, flip through it. Heartthrob season 2, issue 4 is out, which is deep in the series. So even if you you're not necessarily familiar, maybe check it out, flip through it. If you think it's something that you dig, it's a romance heist book about a woman who gets a heart transplant and then starts seeing the guy whose heart it is, falls in love with him. He's a con man and a thief. They start robbing banks. They fall in love. It's toxic. It's crazy. It's heist worthy. It's set in the 70s. It has a very 70s flavor soundtrack to it. It's a beautiful book. The first trade is on Amazon for $8, $10, so you could start there if you wanted to. I just want to give you a heads up because we had a little bit of some hiccups with the scheduling. So 4 is coming out, and then 5 is the last in season 2, so we're nearing the end of that. And this was the one who kind of fell under the radar a little bit. I have a very short story. I think it's 6 pages, 7 pages, something like that. This one right here with Matt Fraction and Elsa Charité. Charité. Her name is very French, and she is very French and amazing, and her art is great. It's very Darwin Cook kind of style. And I love working with her, and it was a wonderful book to do. Little short story, and I hope this doesn't fly under anyone's radar if they want to get work by me. This is coming out this week. So all that out of the way, here's the Barda and Scott Barda and Mr. Miracle pinup by Tom Fowler. So we're gonna get into flatten this, and let's see. Let's put on some music, because there we go. There we go. So here's the thing. I've done a lot of flatting on stream, and I've talked a lot about it. So I mean, if you've missed that, if you're new to the stream, feel free to ask questions. But for anybody that's been following along, I'll still talk through what I'm doing. We're kicking over to CMYK, and I want to save all the line art just in case I mess up the line art. So we just hit you know, Apple A for to select everything, copy pasted it into an alpha channel. So, and we want to work underneath the black lines. So we select everything, hit shift and click the black layer, the black channel rather, and then click the little eyeball, and we're all set. All of these colors in my palette,
are you listening to me?
They'll go underneath the black there. And we're at 20% opacity. Let's crank it up. Yeah, see? They're all underneath the black. And we can just...
Well, it's not.
We're going to start by just filling the whole thing. I'm trying out the music. I hope that it's alright. When they start talking, it's a little... I don't know. I don't know if I like it. We're experimenting. We're seeing what's right for the stream. Alright, so there's a couple challenges with this piece. The music is way too distracting. I can't. I'm sorry. We're gonna close that. I just can't do it. Yeah, dude, I just couldn't even focus with it. Yeah. Alright. So, this is by Tom Fowler. We're going to just do a wash, and then we're going to do the gutter here. Tom does great work. Is a good dude. If you ever see him at a con, he's usually having the most fun. You should go say hey. He's a giant of a man. All right. So we're CMYK. We have our lasso. It is the anti-alias is clicked off. That's up here on the upper left. The wand anti-alias is clicked off. With this piece, we're going to try to separate foreground and background. That's like going to be the most important part of all this. And I'm going to get into color theory and stuff when we start to color, and we'll see what we have time for today. But this looks like a pretty involved piece as far as like what's going on in it. So I don't know if we're gonna get to color stuff yet, but I'll talk to you a little bit about what I'm thinking about. The Jack Kirby stuff in the 60s had a very like psychedelic kind of feel to it that, you know, I'd try to emulate in Cave Carson. So I'm like kind of torn between handling this piece in like a weird psychedelic way or going like, you know, totally normal DC Comics, let's make comic books kind of thing, like superhero stuff. Yeah, Mr. Miracle. So we'll see what I end up. I gotta like, basically what I haven't done yet is look at a bunch of old Kirby art critically with color in mind and decide if I want to roll with that or not, you know? It's gonna be a process, and we could do that on stream. Like we could talk about Kirby stuff on stream too. I don't know a whole lot about Kirby stuff. I mean, everybody knows the well, maybe not everybody knows, but most people know that Mr. Miracle was based on Jim Steranko, who was into magic and an escape artist himself, I guess. Like, everybody says that, but like, I wish there was, I don't know if there is, okay, but I wish there was video evidence of like Jim Steranko doing tricks, you know? Like I wish I could see his act, because he's an older man now, and I don't know that he's like even capable of, and it's been like a long time since like the creation of Mr. Miracle, so I don't know. But apparently Mr. Miracle is based on Jim Steranko meeting Jack Kirby, and Jack Kirby being impressed with him being an escape artist and all that kind of stuff. Hey, Boix. So we'll see. I wish I could go back in time and see Steranko's act. I don't know if you guys have ever met Steranko, but he's like a very like forceful personality. He's got a lot of personality, and when you maybe forceful is the wrong word. He's got like he's very old school, firm handshake, solid eye contact, you know, like he is just very, I don't know, he comes from a different time where like I feel like artists you meet now are like, I mean like introverted isn't even the word, like just maybe introverted is the word, but like Steranko's definitely not that. he's a good dude. When I met him, he told me about how he had a grudge with an editor, and told him that he needed a change, like a character name change. Yeah, he's also a snazzy dresser. He comes to every single Comic-Con in a full suit. Like, he also, I don't know if you know this, but will not take pictures with guys. Like, guys will be like, hey, can I get my picture with you? And he'll be like, nah, that's fine. You can just take a picture of me. That's fine. But the second a girl walks in, he'll be like, hey, honey, come on into the picture, you know? He's, like I said, a different time. At any rate, he, where I lost my train of thought because I was thinking about him being a snazzy dresser. Oh, so he told me the story about how he had this beef with an editor, and the editor wanted to name a character, I think it was Talon. He wanted to name him Claw, or vice versa, or something like that. And Jim had an idea for another character and wanted to use that name, and so, but he knew this was coming out before he could get a chance to like use that name, and he was like married to this name. So he told the editor, he was like, look, you know, like, I'm not going to tell you what to do. Here's what I want. If you don't give me what I want, I will never pick up the phone for you ever again. Like, you will be burnt for me. And he was very like assertive with me about that, and I was like, oh shit. And I was like, yeah, I mean, like, I have a mental list of some editors that have, like, I don't know, like, I felt like have steered me wrong in the past. And he was like, good. Keep that in mind. Stick up for yourself. And I was like, okay, You don't know anything about me, but okay. He's I don't know. He's just that kind of guy. Oh, we didn't do the pipes. We should do the pipes in the same tone. So that and like the reason that we're doing the pipes in the same tone is because this is what I want to think about when I'm going through and actually doing the color. I will talk about that in a moment. But yeah, I mean, Fake McCoy in the chat knows this because he poked fun at me for not knowing who Power Man and Iron Fist is, which is ridiculous now because everybody knows who Power Man and Iron Fist are. But my comic book knowledge is not as robust as other people in the industry. I basically live in terror when people come up to the table and like I sign Deadpool books and stuff. Is this might be in the background, but it's I think that pipe is in the background. Oh, thanks for correcting that story. It was even better because I meant you meant Iron Fist, but you said Iron Man. Yeah. Well, you know what? It happens. We learn things when we learn things. Now I know about Iron Fist. And Iron Man too. I know about all of them. I know about all the men. So, okay. We're going to table that discussion for a hot second. What we have here is basically what I want to do with the actual image. We're going to be this image is basically bought and sold. You know, when I was talking about the Tony Moy piece that we did, where I said like the piece is bought and sold on the drama within the face of the warrior with the sword on his back and the light shine, and we did like a painterly kind of approach to it. And I think that it was very successful. I went over handy and all that stuff and how to step up your game as far as lighting. So that piece was bought and sold, was successful because we paid special attention to the drama in mind, in the face. This piece is going to be successful based on how well we separate the blue pane in the background from like the red pane that we're going to make red right now. I'm going to make it a dark blue. Like, Barda's lifting this big chunk of machinery that they've obviously like kind of like ripped apart in Collateral Damage or something. So it has to get this to work. Hey, a Winter Wonderland just followed us. Thank God. It's hot in Florida. So what you want to do is like separate the planes, and the like more successful that we are with that, the better this piece is going to look. Barda's obviously lifting this thing, and you know, I want to make it so that the big chunk of machinery that she's lifting is going to create like a cast shadow. Hey, Winter Wonderland. Yeah, we don't. There's no follows on the sly over here. So yeah, we're gonna have a cast shadow. We're gonna put them in shadow, so they're darkest and pulling forward, and then the stuff in the back is gonna be pushed backwards. And we're gonna do a lot of like tricks to kind of like make that work. We kind of talked about it in the Spider-Man 2099 piece when I started working on the city stuff, but this is a lot more straightforward than the Spider-Man 2099 piece. That piece had like 5 different layers of like foreground, middle ground, background going on that you kind of like had to separate. So it was separated in like a much more subtle way. This one is going to benefit from like the greatest amount of distance we can get between them. So we'll get into that in a second. But like, let's work on this background stuff. All right. So with stuff like this, is this shrinking? Is this crashing? What is happening right now? Brush. It's happening. It's getting there. There we go. Okay. Photoshop had to wait a hot minute before it decided to do what it wanted to do. So with stuff like this, straight lines and stuff, we could, in theory, like lasso all this stuff out. But instead, like, these are pretty solid, thick lines. Let's just plug up the spaces that need to be plugged up. And we can do that just with the pencil tool. Just like, you know. And if you hold shift while you use the pencil tool, it'll make a straight line. So you can get kind of angular line work going on. And we'll kind of like gesture in there, and that looks pretty closed. We get the headband of Barda there, and what else do we got? We got this stuff. This looks pretty closed. This looks closed. Yeah, so the rest of it's closed. So all we did was like patch up in here. So now we go to CMYK. So now we're working on the black layer. So before, I'll show you what would happen before. Before, we'd like wand and it would select all of this blue. You know, it was like everything. It wasn't using the black. It wasn't taking that. It wasn't using that in mind. You know, if we select CMYK and we make the same selection, we can select within the spaces that we plugged up and within the black line art. So we're just going to do that and select all these little things. And this is like, you know, a huge amount. Like, this is like 1/3 of the background that we need to get done. And you want to expand it by a pixel and then deselect the black and then fill it. And the reason you expand it is trapping issues, which I can get over. I can talk about at the end, because I feel like prepping pages is a big deal and it gets glossed over because it's not sexy. So we'll talk about that when we get to the end of this piece too. And this has like kind of a lot of like dusty line art on it, so I wanted to lasso that. But yeah, so that was like a handful of clicks rather than like tracing out the circle. That would have been the worst part, is like trying to like use the angular lasso to like trace out this circle would have been nuts. And we're gonna do the same thing right over here. So like this guy is all pretty much contained, so we just boom, done. And like this object too is like selectable now because we've selected everything around it, so we can kind of like go like that, you know. Let's select all of the blue, and Tom was nice enough to provide a nice chunky shadow here, so we don't have to like really think about it that much, and just kind of like 2 clicks, like kind of do a base tone, maybe even lighter than that. I'm like kind of half coloring, which might be to my detriment because we might actually do a lot of changes later, but you know, we're rolling with it. And I'm just going to use the brush for this giant circle because Tom drew it in a way where it's very circular and there's nothing else around it, and then we'll get to the water. Yeah, so that looks pretty tight. It looks tight enough. We'll get to the water down here. So yeah, my experience with Mr. Miracle and Barda have been almost exclusively through Justice League stuff, Justice League Unlimited, the cartoon, and like the Batman, various Batman cartoons, various Warner Brothers cartoons that have been on television. Not the stuff that's come out like straight to video stuff. Like I haven't watched a whole lot of that. So like my knowledge of these characters is extremely slim, and I don't know a whole lot about like what their world on Apocalypse like really looks like. Like I'm only pulling from like this one interpretation of it. So when we get into doing color work for this piece, and that is the same color as this, isn't it? Let's make the sewage like greenish. Yeah, there we go. So when we get into doing color for this, I want to sit down and like the beautiful thing about the internet is that I can just go, you know, Mr. Miracle, Jack Kirby, comics, search, and like a bunch of stuff is going to pop up, and it should give me a fairly decent representation of like what the color looks like in those old 60s comics. And from there we can kind of like make an educated guess as to like where we want to land. As always though, you cannot be a slave to the reference. Like you need to take what's down on the page, from the really weird story with her and Superman. What story was that? Was that in the Superman animated series? I kind of remember that. Like, doesn't Mr. Miracle goes missing, and then like Barda gets Superman to help her out or something? Doesn't Barda get the Flash to help her out? I can't remember. It's been forever. But yeah. So I'm just trying to deselect or separate Barda from the rest of the junk around her. A thing that apparently happened in the comics. Yeah, I'm not opposed to like reading. I'm actually, so all this aside, the only other stuff that I've seen with like Barda and Miracle has been the new series written by Tom King and drawn by Mitch Gerardis, which is like totally incredible. I love it. I love that series, which is partly why we're doing this, because I kind of wanted to work with Mr. Miracle. I think that series like illustrates, like, it shows the relationship in a very like interesting way, and I don't know, I really liked it. I still like it. It's still good. It's coming out, I think it's coming out third issue soon. Maybe third issue's out and I gotta catch up. I've been reading comics more in bed at the end of the night on my phone than I have been in like paper form, which is like better than nothing, but certainly not ideal. I kind of like the paper stuff best, but you know, my local shop isn't great, and so I end up, oh yeah, so are those like home movies good? I'd check them out. I'm not opposed to it, but I just like, it seems like there's so many of them that come out that I'm just like, I can never tell just by looking at it if it's like going to be a good one or not, so I never buy any. They always look like I'm like, this could go either way kind of thing. So yeah, I don't know. All that to say is like, I don't know if the third one's out or not yet, but if it is, I got to catch up because it's real good. So yeah, my options for comic buying are usually like, you know, Amazon trade paperbacks and single issue stuff through Comixology, which is fine. Like I don't mind it at all. But like the stuff that I really want to keep is gonna be through picking up trades on Amazon. I really want to, just because of this shadow, like I really want to put that pipe as part. I guess it is because it's like the vertical part. Yeah, we're gonna do it. For some reason, this pipe like stood out to me as like something that I think it's this notch right here made me think that this thing is like on top of the thing in the background rather than part of the foreground. But we got there. We fixed it. It's mostly good. All right. I'll check out some of that stuff. Tangents are rough, but everyone makes a big deal out of them. I feel like tangents are the thing that like everybody makes a big deal about because they are like easily spotted. Like you don't have to have a very intense like trained eye to spot tangents. So like you can put up pieces and be like, all right, where are all the tangents, you know, and then like look at it, and you know, like sometimes stuff gets away from you and you get tired and you don't see it. Like, dude, like blindness from just looking at something for a long period of time is a real thing, and partly why a lot of the times if I'm able to, like I've been able to on all of the Realm stuff, be able to like finish a book on like a Friday, take the weekend off, or at least off of the Realm, and then on Monday like look at the thing again and be like, all right, is this what I want? How do I make this better? Let's try to look at it with fresh eyes. You know, like what I say to myself is, yeah, I mean, tangent can be like a really big problem, especially within comic book pages, when you start to get like the sequential flow of comic book pages broken apart by like weird tangents. That starts to be like a real big mess. But yeah, so I try to like once I get, okay, let me get my train of thought again. On the Realm, I'll take the weekend off. I'll come back. Okay, so what I say to myself, like when I try to approach that stuff again, is like, all right, if somebody came up to me at a Comic-Con and they were like, hey, can you give me a critique? And they showed me these pages that like of the Realm that I'm working on, and asked me like what they would need to fix, what would I tell them? So I kind of like go through with fresh eyes and try to think about that as I go through it. And there's a lot of stuff that I end up changing like last minute, a lot of smaller stuff, and I didn't really do that for the first issue because like a lot of times when you work on a project with a team, a first issue is like, at least I try to do this with first issues, where I'm like, let's just throw everything at this first issue, like, and try to do a lot of various like different things, like kind of stick with what they want, but be like, okay, here's 6 variations of what you want across a whole issue. And then like when you get corrections back, be like, okay, what did they like out of those 6 variations and what did they not like? Because they'll be like, oh, this scene's a little too saturated, or this scene is a little too desaturated, or like I really liked XYZ, and like that information goes a long way to helping you out, helping you like figure out what you need. in what the voice of the issue is going to be. So from there, on like subsequent issues, you can be like, okay, well, let's try to get less and less corrections as we go. And I'm on issue 4, and I just got corrections, and they were all like super minor. So I am treating that as a pretty decent amount of success. At least we're hitting the goal of like, you know, work smarter, not harder kind of thing. That's always the goal. That is always the goal. Is this? I can't tell if that's. Is that gonna look right? That kind of looks right. We can keep that. That'll be background. All right. Now we gotta flat the characters, but I need to also look up what the characters look like exactly. Cause like I got an idea of what Big Barda and Mr. Miracle look like, but it would be nice to know exactly what they look like. So here's Barda, but like Tom didn't put her in like her full outfit. She's in like her weird, like kind of like bikini thing, the animated series stuff. Here, maybe this is gonna be tiny, but like maybe this is better. I mean, it just looks like red white on the animated stuff, but it might be more than that. Oh my god. Google image search Big Barda will lead you to some fascinating results. Some people like their superheroes extremely busty. Maybe too busty. Oh man. There wow. I can't show any of that on stream. It's too lewd for Twitch. No, don't post it. I think I know what I'm doing. I think her outfit is actually pretty simple, and Tom kind of like interpreted it in some different ways, so we're gonna I think I'll be fine. Gotta have that safe search on. I mean, I'm not surprised, but here's the thing. I'm not surprised. However, I'm not surprised at the content. I'm surprised at the amount of said content that I stumbled into. It got weird. Please, if I die on stream, clear my search history. Yeah. It's something. So wait, was this like her original costume? And then they like made the armor? See, this is me showing that like I certainly do not know everything there is to know about these characters. Yeah. Huh. I think the armor is way more interesting, to be perfectly honest. I mean, this was probably a commission that Tom got from somebody, so they were probably specific, or Tom just digs this stuff a little better. But yeah, I think the armor is way more interesting. I don't know if you noticed, but like if you guys are picking up Mitch Gerardis's book, but he's been using these like pattern brushes on her armor to denote like all the plates and stuff like in the blue part of the armor, and it's been totally awesome. It's like, you know, like I try to find Nick confirmed fake. Yeah, I mean, look, man, here's the thing. I've never gone out and been like, I'm the encyclopedia. I know everything. To ask me about comic book trivia. Like, that is certainly not where I'm at. And like the longer that I work in comics, while I love this stuff, like I can get into my history with comics in a second, but like I love this stuff, but I'm also like split because my love of this stuff is also like the love of my craft and what I do, like and how to make good comics as a craft. So like knowing, you know, what issue Barda first appeared in and like what her comics look or what her costumes look like doesn't really help me with the craft. 3 squares and 2 circles on her belt are yellow, but otherwise just plain red. All right. Thank you, Winter Wonderland. That does help. But yeah, I mean, like a lot of people came to comics when they were like pretty young. I gave my mom tried to encourage me to read at a young age with comic books, and I decided that I did not care about them originally. That was my first experience with comic books, was like, what are these things? I don't care. Like, I'm interested in video games kind of thing. And so, but as I got older, I can't remember what, I was in a hobby store. I wish I remembered what the name was. At the time, my brother and my dad and I were racing RC cars in a league that met at night with like other adults. Like it was a very like, as a kid, I remember like thinking that this was pretty cool because like I was hanging out with adults, you know, like like I was socially like part of what they were doing, which was definitely not the case, but you know, I had a good time, and we were racing what's called Legends, which means that, like, you know, my brother and I were kids, we didn't have a lot of money to put into the RC cars. A lot of, like, you know, these kinds of like adult leagues for RC cars have like souped up cars with like, you know, battery, like expensive batteries, expensive motors, like interchangeable gear sets, like stuff that like I, you know, me as a kid, like I couldn't really wrap my brain around, and certainly couldn't afford. So we were playing what's known as Legends. I don't know how this turned into a story about RC cars, but here we are. And Legends were it was like a standardized format. Like every car was the same. And so like you could win if you just drove better than the other people. And I just liked participating. My brother was like real into winning. So 3 squares and 2 circles on the yeah, all right. They're yellow, but otherwise just plain red. Okay. So I was in this hobby shop, and I guess I was old enough to forget that my mom tried to introduce me to comics as a kid, because I saw this Hawkman #1 gold foil cover, and I was like, what the hell is this thing? And I bought it in addition to like whatever, like, you know, RC car stuff that I needed at the time. And that was like my first intro to comic books, and I was like, this shit is freaking nuts. It was like Hawkman at the time was like, I think he was like a homeless guy or something. I can't even remember, but he had like a Wolverine claw, and then like he had like nunchucks as well, and like it was very strange. He didn't have his mace or anything. It was the 90s. It was very, very weird. So I wonder if we're gonna do some of our own interpretation on this costume in the flats, and then maybe tweak it, because it seems like we would want to color this stuff up as well. This actually might be skin tone. Yeah, so I bought this comic and I was like, holy shit, what is this? You know, like, it blew my mind as a kid. And so I was like, it like opened the door to homeless superheroes are big in the night. Yeah, it was weird. Yeah, the 90s were such a weird time for comics. And like, it was like, it had this dichotomy. Like, I don't know if they thought about this at all when they made this comic, but like, they were like, here's our homeless superhero who doesn't have any money and is like a fucking mess and is like living in the gutter. And we gave him a gold foil cover. And it's like, there's a disconnect here. Why would you do this? To taunt him with the riches that he cannot have in his own book? Good Lord. I gotta Google some Mr. Miracle here. We're gonna try to get close to the I don't need news. Give me images. Here we go. So yeah, I don't know that they thought about that at all. It was a fake that is bizarre. It's crazy to think that, like, you know, as a kid you were confused. Yeah, of course you were. Of course you were. But you were like, I don't know, let's roll with this. Like, so much of me picking stuff up as a kid was like all over the place. It was like, you just, as a kid, you just like try shit out, you know? And if it resonates with you, you buy more of it. And if it doesn't, or you know, try to find more of it somewhere, you know, with friends who are into it or whatever. And if it doesn't, then it doesn't. But like, yeah. So because of like all of this stuff, like, and the fact that I guess we'll pull all the green out of his costume right now, since we've selected the green stuff. And I'm kind of like taking my leisurely pace through these flats. This is not like a how to flat fast guide. You know, I'm making a lot of steps that are a little weird. And so that are not like optimized for speed. At any rate, that was the first comic I picked up, which kind of like opened the door for comics. Like, I never got the second issue, like I never got into Dragon Ball Z. But yeah, so I never got the second issue because the hobby store just like, they just got whatever. I'm sure they've like supermarkets. I'm sure they were on some plan like supermarkets are on, where, you know, like, they just get a stack of magazines at the beginning of the month, and then whatever they get, you know? So that kind of opened the door, and then I didn't actually start, one page was you never flat for others ever again. Yeah, man, flatting is a tough game for sure. It just takes a lot of hours. The only flatting I ever do is like stuff on stream, only because I don't really want to pay to get stuff flatted that I'm not earning a paycheck for. It just doesn't seem cost effective to me. But at any rate, so I never got the second issue because they never got the second issue. And like, honestly, I still didn't even know where to get comics. You know, like, I saw them in the supermarket sometimes, but I wasn't in the supermarket that often with my mom. And then, you know, like, so even though that opened the door, I kind of didn't know where to go from there. And then Batman the Animated Series came along, following 90s X-Men stuff, which is where I was getting most of my comic book content. And then I started in like middle school going to the comic shop on a regular basis, but like, I didn't know exactly what I wanted, and also I had no, like, there was no guide. We're gonna go back. I'm gonna talk about like this green problem that we're having in a second here, but yeah, it wasn't until like I met a couple of friends who were into comics that I was like starting to really actually go to the shop on a regular basis. But even going to the shop on a regular basis, I was like, you know, there's so much history with all these characters, like, and I want to be able to read. And I was older, so I was like, I want to be able to like read and understand like what's going on. You know, like I want to enjoy it. 90s nostalgia, yeah. I want to enjoy it, so I started picking up. At the time, Image Comics had just gotten like off the ground, and so I started picking up like number ones of like Image stuff because it was brand new, you know, like you could jump in and there's no history and you just go. So I pick up and stuck with the Max and that was a bad selection. I pick up and stuck with, is this all Cape? This is all Cape. The Max and Spawn. And then I started picking up, and because like at my shop in Connecticut, you didn't, why is that lucky that you didn't find Comic Friends until the internet? I count it lucky that I found Comic Friends because like otherwise I wouldn't have gotten into anything. So yeah, because these were number ones and because they got me into it, and then I found other stuff that was like off the beaten path because the Image books were put with like indie press stuff in the shop where I was going. This conversation's making you feel old. You're as old as I am, Fake McCoy. We're all old. We're all old together. It's been a while since the 90s, you gotta admit. So all right, we're gonna, because I don't know if his torso is actually separated from his belt, we're just gonna do a slightly darker red here. But yeah, so since it was with the indie stuff, I'm 36. I picked up Scud the Disposable Assassin. I was buying that religiously, and La Cosa Nostroid, which was like the spin-off from Rob Schrab. And then I was also picking up like an occasional like Cerberus comic from Dave Sim, which, you know, whatever your opinion is on Dave Sim, that's like a whole thing. We forgot about this glove. So yeah, I was picking up that stuff also because like I was starting to get into high school, and I was like, you know, I was an edge kid. I was like, you know, just like, no one understands me. I'm gonna get these indie comics. You know, like the stuff that was like really mainstream just like didn't really appeal to me at the time. And so because of that, like by the time I got to college, where I met Fake McCoy, who's like in the chat, this is older than you. Yeah. By the time I got to college, he was like, you know, Power Man and Iron Fist. And I was like, who? What? I was like, all I know is I really like Scud the Disposable Assassin. Yeah, so like the way I got into comics was a very like meandering, weird path where like pretty much with a lot of mainstream comics, if it wasn't on TV, like I didn't really see it. And it's only until like me getting older and being like, oh, you know, like Demon in a Bottle is a really great Iron Man story because it broke all these boundaries, and it talked about alcoholism, like well before comics were really dealing with that. Like even though like as a kid, I could have picked up that stuff. Like, A, it wouldn't have resonated with me. B, I wasn't ready for it. And then, like, I just kind of, like, missed it. But then now that I'm older, I'm like, oh, I'm going to actually get this trade and, like, you know, go through it. Let's do these little dots. I guess we're going to do them yellow. This is starting to make sense to me. Like, there's a method to the madness. The yellow in the costume versus like, they have basically the same color coordinated costumes. I don't think I ever put that together before. So yeah. So here's our mistake with the green. Oh, I guess we gotta grab this guy too. Hey, Susan Lee, thank you for the follow. Yeah, so here's the problem with the cape. Big into Gen 13. I was picking up a lot of Gen 13 stuff too when I was in high school, for obvious reasons, because I was an awkward high school boy, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna get this Gen 13 comic. I was you know, totally the person that they were like, oh, we can sell these to, you know, 13-year-old boys. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no shame. I still have a couple of Gen 13 books from when I was a kid, but I've gotten rid of most of them just because I was like, you know, like, I don't know, man. It's just like a weird snapshot of my life. Yeah, Gen 13. Man, comics were weird back in the day. So yeah, a lot of the stuff like this, like Mr. Miracle and Barda and, like, you know, Jack Kirby working with DC Comics, I didn't even really start to appreciate or even know about until I got to college. Yeah, I mean, J. Scott Campbell draws beautifully, but especially for the time, like, he was, you know, incredible. But I don't know, my tastes have changed since then, and I don't find him as interesting as he used to be. So that's just me personally. I don't dig anyone who, you know, I'll read Sin City. Oh, look at the tough guy in the chat. Passing over Gen 13 for Sin City. So by the time I got to the end of high school, I was reading stuff like Sin City because my friend circle grew a little bit from, like, me and 2 other people who were into comics to, like, me and, like, 7 or 8 other people who were into comics. And so with all of us kind of, like, having input on each other's tastes and like experimenting with stuff that we like, I read when I was in high school. I remember digging through the couch for quarters so that I could buy the final issue of Preacher so I could see how it ended. And you know, reading Sin City for the first time, reading Dark Knight Returns for the first time, reading Batman Year One for the first time. Like, I have a lot of fond memories. There was like 2 years where I was reading like a lot of incredibly classic books that are now classics for the first time, and like really enriching myself, you know, beyond like the Gen 13 stuff, you know. I think we're like close to done. So what I wanted to say with the cape was, so like I can grab, you know, glove pretty easily. I can even kind of grab the boots. You get a little bit of the underwear there, the underwear over the leggings or whatever is going on with the outfit, with superhero outfits in general. But like if the cape was that same color green, let's save it from here. If this cape was this same color green, I couldn't be like, all right, let me grab this glove. Then it's like this whole side is like is grabbed, and that's not what flats should do. In fact, if this was actually a professional quote unquote flat job, And I say professional because like there's tons of different variations of like what that means and how people like their flats and blah 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 blah. You know, a flatter is a flatter and a colorist is an interesting relationship. So I'd probably, if I wasn't just doing this for me, I'd probably like knock back the shorts too. Should actually probably Mr. Miracle's booty shorts that he's wearing, or underwear over his leggings. I don't even know. We're gonna take this same green and just 50%, so we can grab, you know, cape stuff, underwear, boots and gloves, and I guess the top of the cape. Yeah, I mean, I've seen the Photoshop plugin. Here's my 2 cents on the Photoshop plugin for flats. I've run it. They're called trunks. Sure they are. I've run it. It makes terrible decisions. And it also does like weird things. Like, so this piece right here in the pipe is separate from the rest of the pipe. So the Photoshop plugin would run like this. It wouldn't be like, oh, this is all part of the pipe. It would be like, this is one color. Like the Photoshop plugin runs like this. This is one color. This is another color. This is another color. This is another color. Like it does, and it's not even nearly as pleasing as the color selections that I picked here that are all kind of like all over the place. So the Photoshop plugin really, and then it also does a thing like, so the skin tone that I picked, and even if it wasn't this skin tone, even if it was like, you know, freaking, I don't know, this blue, even if it was this blue, it wouldn't do the hand in the same blue as the leg. It would do, you know, 20 different colors through this whole thing. So the goal of flats is so that I can go in and be like, okay, let's select Barda's skin tone because I want it to be a little more tan, you know, like that. Like that's the goal. And if it doesn't achieve that goal, then I don't know. I kind of feel like the for me, someone who's been working with Photoshop since like 2002, 2001, the plugin that flats for me takes a lot more time than me just doing it myself. Like what, I don't know what time we're at right now. We're at like an hour, and I spent like the first like 10 minutes talking about the books that are coming out this week, which I'll wrap up with in a minute. And then we talked about comics in the 90s. Like, so, I mean, it wasn't even my full focus, and it probably took me 45 minutes, you know? So it's like, I don't know how much time you're saving. And then like, don't even get me started on like, if you have a page, it becomes infinitely harder, rather than a pinup. Sin City or V for Vendetta are both good reads, Kate. You should probably read them if you have them. V for Vendetta is a little hard to follow because of the coloring. You will appreciate a good colorist. Maybe we should redo a page of V for Vendetta in the future, actually. That'd be kind of fun. V for Vendetta, if I remember, was like watercolored. I'm looking it up right now. It's been forever since I read some V for Vendetta. Yeah. So here, we'll paste it into what we got going on over here. This is a page from V for Vendetta, and part of the thing that was tough for me when I read V for Vendetta for a first time, I mean, maybe, but I don't know if like colorists are going to want to color a full page. That's the thing. It might be something that we just do on stream. The problem that I had with V for Vendetta as a reader when I was like starting to read comics and Frank Miller and stuff like that was that I was younger and I still was learning the language of comics, like how to read a page, how to understand what's going on, like so I needed all the help from like good colorists at the time to be like, okay, this character is green motifed in her costumes, and this character that she's fighting is red motifed. Is their opposite on the color wheel, and like they're gonna fight. V doesn't have any of that. V is like, it's a very like moody book, but it's also, the mood sacrifices clarity, and I don't know if that necessarily is something that is a good thing. Like V for Vendetta is certainly a classic, certainly. It's an incredible book, but I think that the coloring, for me personally, the coloring leaves a little bit to be desired. So I also do this thing where I don't even know if I have V for Vendetta anymore. I do this thing where I buy comic books, and I love comic books, and I want people to read comic books. So if someone's like, hey, I just saw, the new Spider-Man movie, and I really liked it. Like, what kind of comics would I like? I'll be like, here's a pile. Go crazy. And then I'll lose track of like what's out there. And then if it's a good comic, I'll just buy it again because I love comic books, and I want to be able to like hand them out and like give them to people who might appreciate them and might grow their love for comics. So I'm not even sure if I have V for Vendetta anymore. You want to draw comics, but you don't want to read comics? Hey man, I read far less comics now than I did when I was like in high school around that time. I'm only reading like 3 comic books right now. Because, you get busy. You got other priorities, other stuff going on in your life. It's fine. Like, read comics when you can. I don't advocate, if you want to draw comics, like never reading comics, because you do have to understand what's going on within the industry. By the way, I think we're done flatting this piece. I'm gonna say my piece about reading comic books as a professional, and then we're gonna wrap up the stream here, since I'm talking and we can get into it. Here's my thing. You have to kind of be aware of what's going on in the industry. And for a long time, I didn't read any comics at all. Like, I assumed that comics were going to influence the way that I was coloring. And I didn't want that. I wanted to like find my own voice kind of thing. But what I didn't realize was happening was, the more that I was doing that, the more segregated from the industry I was getting, and the less there was a lot of like small tips and tricks that I wish I picked up earlier. It's just seeing other people execute on different things, like seeing Jordi Belair color comics has made me think, oh, maybe I can color light and dark in a much more subtle way, and has made me a better artist. Seeing Matt Wilson color comic books has made me be like, oh, we can go saturated but dark, and like that's interesting, like, and finding places for that is interesting. So, like, my point is that like you don't have to kick comics entirely. Is that you should, as a creator, try to read not as much as you can, but like be selective, try stuff out. It's okay to pick up like a single issue in a run, just to like see what people are doing. And it especially informs you as to like what editors are looking at and what they like and what they're putting out there. If you want to work for DC and Marvel, and like, I'm making a lot of assumptions here. I'm assuming that you have comics under your belt and you're trying to like not break in, but break up, essentially. Break up with comics? No, don't break up with comics. You're trying to level up in comics. Seeing what editors are greenlighting is also important. Being able to participate in the industry and look at that stuff is important. And then, when you go to shows and you're talking about your work and you're talking to other artists, you'll know what they do and like how they work. And you might, as I don't know if you're in particular talking about coloring, but like as a colorist, I know who I'm going to be stronger over art wise. And the only way for me to continue to kind of like make relationships with artists that I would want to work with is to like go to shows. And the only way to understand like who I think I could enhance their work is to understand what their work even is. You know what I mean? So if I think that like, I mean, I don't know, like I'm working on a Tom Fowler piece here, but like, I'm not exactly I don't know if Tom Fowler actually works with consistent colorists or not. I know he paints a lot of his own stuff. So, there's that. But yeah, if I was like, oh, Tom Fowler is an incredible artist, but I feel like his color, and I don't think this, cause I don't even know who's coloring Tom Fowler right now. But, if I was like, oh, I think I can snipe Tom Fowler. I think I can color better than his current colorist. I can start to like, think about that and pursue that if I wanted to, and try to convince Tom to like, switch sides or go to bat for me for the next project or whatever, but I can't do that if I'm not familiar with the industry and what's going on. And also furthermore, I'm not advocating that you snipe any of my work. So don't do that. I'm actually not advocating that you snipe anybody. Snipe is such a strong word. What I'm saying is like, if you see someone that is really, really great, that is colored by like 20 different colorists in 20 different ways, potentially that person is experimenting with stuff. Don't be a stream sniper. Potentially that artist is experimenting with a lot of different colorists, and you could get in the mix, and you could see how you feel about that, and you could see how the other person feels about that. There's a lot of reasons why artists end up with a lot of different colorists, and that could be one, that they could just be trying other colorists out. And if you don't have your pulse on the community, you can't ever figure that out. That's the long and short of it. So I've had stuff rolling in. I'm trying to stream self-aware here. There. Heartthrob just popped up right there. We have coming out this week, 4 things coming out in shops that you guys can look for. Speaking of picking up stuff at a comic shop, The Realm #1 is hitting a second printing, and that is coming out this week. So if you missed it, which a lot of people did, I saw somebody told me that a comic shop was selling a first printing of The Realm #1 for $15 already, which is like fucking absurd because it's only been out for less than a month. But it is what it is. Comic shops run however they want to run, whatever. The second printing's coming out, so if you missed it, you can pick it up along with the issue 2 that's also coming out this week. So 1 and 2 of The Realm are coming out. I highly suggest you get them. They're very, very good. What else is coming out? I got a small story in Bitch Planet written by Matt Fraction and drawn by Elsa Charretier. I try to French up her name because her name is very French and I don't want to American the crap out of it, but I'm sure I'm pronouncing it wrong. She is fantastic, very like Darwin Cookish kind of style, but also her own. She did Unstoppable Wasp stuff just recently. Yeah, she's very, very good. And then Heartthrob #4 is coming out. If you're not familiar with Heartthrob, do not start there. It's like the 9th book we have coming out. You want to start right there. Heartthrob #1. That's the trade for the first 5 issues. Check it out. If you're in the shop, at least flip through this stuff. See if any of it appeals to you. We're going to be coloring this on the next stream. And we're going to be talking about Jack Kirby a little bit. We're going to be looking at, I'm going to try to pull a bunch of samples from like how things were colored back in the 60s and maybe modernizing it. And we're going to get into that and maybe try to make, we're also going to talk about how to make this image successful, and maybe even get into like, you know, coloring things correctly versus coloring things in an interesting way, which I think is an important discussion to have. I lost track of the chat because I was like talking, but yeah, I'm catching up right now. Yeah, if you don't want to read comics, you just need someone to find the right comics for you. I 100% agree. Like, I tried a lot of stuff when I was living in Philadelphia because I had a great comic shop where I knew these two guys, Brian and Rob, who ran the shop, Brave New Worlds in Philly. You should totally go in. Tell them I sent you. They knew what I liked, and so I went in there and I was like, I would go in for like one or two things, and I would come out with like a stack of books because they'd be like, "Oh, you got to try this. You got to try this. You got to try this." I feel like having a relationship with someone at your comic shop is important if you want to continue to read comics, but a lot of shops don't do that. Like, a lot of shops aren't as welcoming as Brian and Rob at Brave New Worlds. It's a weird thing. And, you know, if it's not that, then it takes research, and that's tough too. You know, that's why I also advocate following people on Twitter and Instagram. And, like, you know, if you find a artist you like, follow them on Twitter and Instagram, see what they, so that when they talk about what they're working on, you can pick it up. By the way, follow me on Twitter and Instagram. But yeah. Man, I've been like, the shill has been rough. I've just been plugging stuff at the end of this stream. At any rate, thanks for hanging out, guys. And thanks for talking 90s comics with me. And we'll color this up probably Thursday. If not Thursday, then Friday. If Thursday gets away from me, we'll do it Friday for sure. See you then.